Benito, hijo de Benito, le decían Tito, el mayor de 6, trabajando desde chamaquito, guiando camiones como el pai y el abuelo. Aunque su sueño siempre fue ser ingeniero, un día Tonito lo invitó para hacer una mudanza, para buscar salguito, par de pesos, para algo alcanza. Gracias a Dios que ese día no estaba bici, porque en la mudanza fue donde conoció a Lizzy, la menor de 3 que se criaron con doña Juanita, porque su papá y mamá partieron estando chiquita. Prometió graduarse antes de casarse y lo cumplió. Diciembre del 9-2, con Tito se casó antes de irse para el Migrante, donde se conocieron, vivieron en Morovi, en donde hicieron al nene, que en Bayamón por primera vez vieron. Un aplauso para mami y papi, porque en verdad rompieron.
¿Qué pasa, amigos? Hace tiempo que no los veo. ¿Cómo han estado? Hoy tenemos mucho de qué hablar, así que no perdamos tiempo. Escuchamos la mudanza de Bad Bunny y quiero enseñarles unas cosas que demuestra la canción. Okay, now before we get into the musical portion of this song, I want to go back to an earlier line. Aunque su sueño siempre fue ser ingeniero, meaning although his dream was always to be an engineer. He's using the verb ser, to be, in the preterite with fue, instead of choosing to use the imperfect with era. Now, you probably already know that the preterite is used for specific completed actions with a clear start and stop point, whereas the imperfect is for ongoing or habitual actions in the past. So the question is, does this use of fue instead of era feel out of place here? Well, no. The thing we need to understand about the preterite is that it can be used for a single action which took place over a long period of time. Like to say, ella trabajó en la empresa durante 30 años, meaning she worked in the company for 30 years. Really, the best way that we can think about the difference here is that the preterite talks about what happened, while the imperfect tells us what was happening or used to happen. Now, just keep in mind, you'll come up against plenty of situations where either tense could really work, and they just give off slightly different vibes. It's not always an exact science, so just try to pay attention to native speakers and when they choose one tense over the other. You'll get the hang of it with time.
Ey, el mejor de la nueva porque me crié en la vieja. Gracias a mami y papi por todos los jalos no oreja. Nunca me han visto en la calle ni en los podcasts ando queja. Tratan de medir fuerza y no pueden ni en pareja.
Now, there are a number of ways to say to try in Spanish, used in different contexts. Firstly, tratar de and intentar mean the exact same thing, and they'll be followed by our target verb in the infinitive. Tratar de hacerlo and intentar hacerlo both mean to try to do it. Just be careful though, because tratarse de means to be about. Like, la película se trata de una viuda que se vuelve a enamorar. However, we also have the verb probar, which means to try in a few different ways. The first is to taste something, like with ven, prueba esta sopa, meaning come here, try this soup. But the other big use for probar as to try is when we want to use it to test something, like a certain method or a tool. So we could say something like, probé la tarjeta de regalo, pero no sirvió. I tried the gift card, but it didn't work. If we want to use probar with a verb, as in trying a certain method of doing things, we follow it up with a, and we use the verb in the infinitive, like to say, voy a probar a reiniciar la computadora, to say, I'm going to try to restart the computer. The big difference between probar a versus tratar de or intentar is probar a is used to test a method, whereas tratar de and intentar are used when we already think that the method works, but we just don't know if we'll be successful.
Yo no canto reggae, pero sí cultura de Borinca en PR, archipiélago perfecto. En el mundo entero ya conocen mi dialecto, mi jerga. A mí me importa un bicho lo que a ti te vale verga.
There's lots of ways to say I don't care in Spanish. and some of them get pretty vulgar. The line here is, a mí me importa un bicho lo que a ti te vale verga. If we want to literally translate that, it'd be something like, a dick matters to me, what's worth a dick to you. But probably the simplest way to say I don't care is just no me importa, which just means it doesn't matter to me. And by the way, you can also just say no importa to say it doesn't matter. Like in a general sense, it doesn't matter. If you want to add a little bit of zest to it, you can say something like me importa un comino, un pepino, un bledo, un pimiento, or in this case, un bicho. We've also got te vale verga, but vale can also be used with basically all the same words as importa to mean the same thing. Or you could just sarcastically say something like me vale. Now, we can also say things like me da igual or me da lo mismo, which is kind of like saying it's all the same to me. Now, there are plenty of other ways to say I don't care in Spanish, and a lot of them get into really regional slang, so let us know down in the comments if I left out your favorite.
Aquí mataron gente por sacar la bandera. Por eso es que ahora yo la llevo donde quiera, cabrón, ¿qué fue? Esto está peligroso. Si mañana muero, yo espero que nunca olviden mi rostro y pongan un tema mío el día que traigan a Otto. En la caja la bandera azul clarito y que recuerden que siempre fui yo, siempre fui Benito.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to play historian for a second here, just in order for this all to make sense. But I promise we'll get back to learning Spanish in just a little bit. So Eugenio Maria de Hostos was a Puerto Rican philosopher, educator, and a huge political figure who fought for Puerto Rican independence. He actually died in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, and that's where he's currently buried. But he didn't want to stay buried there. He asked his people to return his remains to Puerto Rico to bury him there only once they have their independence. As far as the flag on his coffin goes, this is considered to be the official flag of Puerto Rico. Now, this flag, on the other hand, is one of the original flags of Puerto Rico, which was actually illegal to display under the gag order of 1948, after Puerto Rico got taken over by the United States. And like Bad Bunny said, people were even killed for displaying it. Now, only the US flag was allowed to be shown at the time. Then in 1952, they developed a version of the flag which was allowed to be used with a dark blue color to look more like the US flag. And the gag order wasn't repealed until 1957 because it's a violation of the First Amendment. So the bandera azul clarito that Bad Bunny is talking about and running with in the video here, it's a symbol of Puerto Rican pride, independence, and resistance to US rule. So the line here is basically saying when Puerto Rico becomes independent and Hostos is returned to be buried at his true home, Bad Bunny hopes they'll play a song of his that day while Hostos is laid to his final resting place with the true flag of Puerto Rico. Pretty cool, huh? Now, as far as the Spanish we can learn here, let's look at that last line where he says, siempre fui yo, siempre fui Benito. In this case, fui yo could mean either it was me or I was me. In Spanish, when we want to say things like, is that you or it's me, we use ser conjugated onto whoever we're talking about. But we have to make sure that the conjugation matches. So for example, if you open your fridge at work and somebody has eaten your lunch, well, you could go up to your coworker and ask them, ¿Alguien comió mi almuerzo? ¿Fuiste tú? And they might lie to you and say, no fui yo, to say, no, it wasn't me. Or maybe you're on the phone with your friend who's got you on speaker and you hear a familiar voice in the background. So you might say something like, Maria, ¿eres tú? To ask, Maria, is that you? So in English, we have to use words like it or that. But in Spanish, we just conjugate ser to match whoever we're talking about. So when Bad Bunny says, siempre fui yo, that could translate either as, I was always me, or it was always me. They're both used the same way.
Sin dejar de ser del barrio, pa' que sepa. Aprieta, chamaquito, aprieta. aquí nadie me saca, de aquí yo no me muevo.
I just want to point out real quick that Mudarse and Moverse both translate as to move, but he's saying no me muevo, which means I'm not physically moving, like I'm not moving from this spot. But he could have also said no me mudo to say I'm not moving, as in I'm not finding a new home. The point is, when you go to translate from English to Spanish, you need to know that just because the word you're using translates the same into English, it might not actually mean what you're trying to say. So be careful, because if not, you could make some pretty embarrassing mistakes.
Dile que esta es mi casa, donde nació mi abuelo. De aquí nadie me saca, de aquí yo no me muevo. Dile que esta es mi casa, donde nació mi abuelo. Yo soy de Pepo Guillerre. Yo soy de Pepo Guillerre. Yo soy de Pepo Guillerre. Yo soy de Pepo Guillerre.
Okay, amigos, well, that's everything I've got for you today. Muchísimas gracias por ver. It feels so good to be back. Sorry I've been away for a while, been very busy with work and the holidays and everything, but I'm glad to be back, and I'll be making more videos for you guys here real soon. I'm actually going to be leaving for Colombia this week, and I'm planning on taking as many videos as I can out there, so hopefully I'll have some really cool, authentic Spanish to share with y'all in the coming weeks. But thank you so much for watching, and if you want to keep learning Spanish with me, check out some of my other videos. I'm here to help you with anything, so leave a comment at any time if you've got any questions, and I'll be there for you. Que tengas un día bonito. Adios!